Good morning. Happy Wednesday. South Louisiana is hot today. Looks like it's going to be a very hot summer. Y'all, it is an exciting time in real estate. It's an exciting time to be a buyer. And it's crazy because the question I get asked most often from potential buyers who are renting. Most of the time, these people are renting. And this is the question. What is the current interest rate? You know what's crazy? This is what's crazy. If you are a renter, the interest rate is irrelevant, because if you are currently renting a home, you are paying 100% interest on something you will never own. Absolutely ludicrous to think about what are the interest rates. The interest rates are average right now. They're average. If you look at the interest rates over the last 30 to 40 years, they're absolutely average. But if you're renting a home, you are paying 100% interest on a home you will never own. So if the interest rates were in the 20s, 30s, or 40s, they'd still be lower than what you're paying on that rent house, okay? So some things to keep in mind if you're thinking about buying, and especially if you're renting and your rent is pretty hefty. If your rent, you feel like your rent is pretty pricey, and you have been employed in the same job for the last 2 years or more, or you've gotten a promotion during the two times and during those 2 years, and for some reason you've switched jobs, but because you've gotten promotions, that's okay too. If your credit is decent, it does not have to be excellent. Listen, it doesn't even have to be good. If your credit is decent, you can buy a house. If you have, in lots of cases, no money, you can buy a house. If your credit is not that great, you might qualify for an FHA loan, which means you need 3.5% down. A huge misconception that lots of buyers have, and it's actually a misconception I had before I got into real estate, is that you need 20% down to buy a house. Absolutely false. Lots and lots of people qualify for loans that are 100% financing, which means you need $0 to buy a house. Lots and lots of scenarios happen that way. Lots of people qualify for a conventional loan, which means you need either 3% down if you're a first-time home buyer, or 5% down if you've bought a house in the past. Probably less than 5% of people put down 20%, and that's because they choose to, because they want to finance less. And listen, if you are in that boat and you have plenty of money saved and you want to put down a lot because you want to finance less, that is absolutely genius. That's smart to do. But just know that it's a huge misconception that you need 20% down to buy a house. You absolutely do not. Most people qualify for a USDA loan, a rural development loan, which is 100% financing, which means 0% down. Lots of other people who don't have great credit, don't even have good credit, probably have poor credit, qualify for an FHA loan, which means you need 3.5% down. Now let's say you feel like your credit's not so great. You're probably going to qualify for an FHA loan because you've been employed for at least the last 2 years, and your credit's not that great, but you don't have 3.5% down. There are ways to get the 3.5% down. So if you feel like your credit's not so great, but you have the steady income, right, and you can qualify for a loan, but you need help with the 3.5% down, there are so many creative ways that lenders have found to get you the 3.5% down. So don't worry about that. This is what I say to potential buyers. If you really, really, really are serious about buying, there's a way. There's absolutely a way to do it, but you have to have a plan. So, number one, you need to get pre-approved so that you know, number one, what type of loan you have. Certain houses qualify for certain loans. Certain houses don't qualify for certain kinds of loans. So knowing what loan type you have is going to help you when you go online and you start looking for houses that you want to view or potentially purchase. Another reason to get pre-approved is because you don't want to start house hunting in a price range that you think you may be pre-approved for. Lots and lots of times people tell me, I think I'm going to have this budget, and when I say to them, where'd that budget come from, they just pulled it out the air. Listen, what you need to be thinking about is this. What monthly note do you want to pay? And that's going to include your house. T-Mobile, y'all. If you live out in the rural areas, don't go with T-Mobile. It's not great. Okay, so listen, back to my my point. The budget should be, what monthly note do you want to pay? And that includes your house note, your taxes, and your insurance. If it's in an area that requires flood insurance, that's also flood insurance. So combining all those things into one note, what is the max amount that you feel comfortable paying per month? And so when you get pre-approved, and listen, I've said it and I'll say it again, most of the time, a local bank is not the best place to get a mortgage. It's not. So if you're not sure where to go to get a mortgage, to get the best interest rate, the lowest amount of fees, and all those kinds of things, send me a message or call me or text me and I will give you some suggestions. Back to my story. You got to think about, what is that note that you want to pay and what is the max? And so let's just say the max per month that you want to pay is $2,000. Then when you get pre-approved, you say to that person, do not pre-approve me for a budget that's more than whatever equates to $2,000 a month, because that is my absolute limit. So what you might say is, this is my range. $1,500 to $2,000 is my range. That's what I want my note to be. I don't want it to be more than $2,000. So what does that look like? What number does that look like as a budget? Is it $200,000? Is it $300,000? I don't know what it is. It depends on the interest rates. It depends on your credit. It depends on your loan type. There are so many factors that go into what is that number going to be. So you might say, well, Darla, what is a loan amount for $1,500 a month? I don't know. There's too many factors that go into that. So the only person that can figure that out for you is a mortgage broker. Okay? So know, if you're buying that house with a fiance, a girlfriend, a wife or a husband, or whoever the case may be, you have a conversation with them, a good, long, hard conversation where y'all agree what is the max amount we want to pay per month. And that's only the amount you get pre-approved for. So if your budget max is going to be $2,000, don't get pre-approved for more than that, if that's not what you want to pay. All right? So, if you're a buyer, another thing to keep in mind is this. Once you know your budget, once you know your loan type, choose your realtor. Choose your realtor. Most people do it backwards, and in fact, before I got into real estate, I did it backwards too. I had no idea. This is what happens. You choose your realtor. That realtor can show you any house listed anywhere. They schedule the showing, they schedule the tour, they represent you as the buyer, okay? That's what happens. And if you use me as your realtor, I'm not charging you anything up front. I get paid when the deal closes, and it comes off the sale price of the house. That's what happens. So you're not paying me anything up front. Now, I do know right now there are some realtors that are charging a fee to buyers. I am not. I will not. Okay? So keep that in mind. Get pre-approved, know your loan type, know your budget, then give a realtor a call that you know, like, and trust, that is going to show you any house, anywhere in your budget. And that is going to have the knowledge to negotiate for you to get the best deal. For example, there are closing costs associated with every purchase of a home. Okay, there are closing costs, and those closing costs can range anywhere between $5,000. I've seen them as much as $12,000. That fee is paid normally by the buyer. If you use me as your realtor and you don't have $5,000, $10,000, $12,000 for closing costs, we're going to figure out a way to make sure that you get those closing costs in the deal. That's going to happen. So you want a realtor on your side who is going to get you what you need. Okay? Remember this, where there's a will, There's absolutely always a way. Now, if you say, I want to buy, but I feel like my credit is probably way too low, or I have way too much debt, what I would recommend to you is either give me a call, text me, or message me and say, who is a good mortgage broker that I can start working with, who can give me some tips so that very soon I can buy. Because there's always going to be a way for you to be able to buy. That might be paying off some debt. That might be, if you don't even have credit, how to go about building up your credit. There's so many different avenues for ways to buy a house. And a mortgage broker is the expert in helping you buy a house. I'm not the expert on the financing side, but I work with lots and lots and lots of people who are amazing experts at that, okay? So remember this, there are no stupid questions. There's always a way to buy a home if you are motivated and you can follow through with a plan. So if you need help, do not hesitate to call me or message me or text me or whatever the case may be, and I will answer all your questions. Y'all have a great day. Anything real estate related, I would love to have a conversation with you about, whether you're a buyer or a seller. Sellers, it is an amazing time to be a seller. There are never, ever, ever enough homes for sale. Ever. The inventory is never high enough. There are never enough homes to choose from. That's a fact. Y'all take care.